All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello all. It is great to see everyone. We've got Albert on board.
Albert, thank you.
Kim on board.
Kim, how are you?
And I can't believe they did it. They spoiled the Trump trial. I was recording it, and now the ending has been spoiled. I know.
What?
I don't need to tell you. I was just on the Michael Cohen part. All right. I am anxious to x-ray the situation with Donald Trump legally. I'll even read a couple of emails we've received which pertain to what's the future, right? What's the legal future of Donald Trump? And that's going to be some of what we do today, and we are really excited that we put up the bat beam for David Katz to join us, and he will join us in seconds. But also today, Friday,
Mark is standing by, so whenever you're ready.
Yes, all right. Well, get right to him. I can't. Albert, please don't interrupt my intro music to tell me who's waiting. We have protocol here.
We have processes and protocols and standards.
We have processes, protocols, and standards. But I am excited that David Katz will join. And then in the second hour, we'll talk about the politics of the Trump situation, but also there's other stuff going on. Something huge happened, not unanticipated, but something huge happened politically that wasn't related to Trump, that I'll talk about with Michael Shure when he joins us in the second hour. And, of course, the culture blaster, Michael Snyder, joins us at the bottom of the second hour, and we will get into what to watch this weekend, streaming, etc. Donald Trump found guilty, and Donald Trump playing the hits in his latest statement. I will get to the Trump statement if there's time, and he essentially just, as I say, cranked up the grievance machine. And the GOP has fallen in line. They're all singing from the same hymnal, the political prosecution of Donald Trump. Joe Biden got what he wanted. The Democrats got what they wanted. Let's get with David Katz and see about
The Mark Thompson Show.
He has really responded to our urgent call. Such a terrific analyst across the English-speaking world, from Australia to New Zealand to Great Britain. In this country, from New York to Chicago to San Francisco to Los Angeles. So many tap the brilliance of our guest. Thank you for being here for just a few minutes to help sort these things out. The former federal prosecutor, now working as a defense lawyer. How about it for David Katz, everybody?
Great to be with you, Mark.
David, what is the impression you have after the jury came down with all of these convictions? I mean, there was no exception. Would you have expected, not guilty on some things, guilty on others, or is this run of the table something that we can take something on?
I think the run of the table was logical because all of the falsification of business records were interconnected. Trump signed those checks, 12 of them. Each one of them was a count in 2017 to break up the payments to Michael Cohen, the $420,000, into 12 divisions, 12 counts. Then they put in the business records that this was a legal expense. They put that in about 12 times. And so I had an interesting story from yesterday because I was on KCBS, which is 97.1 here in the Southland, here in Los Angeles area. And I was on with Charles Feldman, who's a terrific reporter that they have. And he had me on just when they knew there was a verdict, but they didn't know what it was. So I said to him confidently that it was going to be guilty on these counts for felonies. And then he said to me, well, let me just puncture your confidence with a question. And then they went right to the courtroom because their reporter for CBS was reporting guilty count one, guilty count two. So he comes back to me right after that and says, well, and I said, I feel very unpunctured. I thought with the jury instructions being the way they were, I thought that was the only issue that might stand in the way and lead to a hung jury, that they would get into a situation where 4 of the jurors would say, I thought he committed state campaign finance violations, and 4 said, no, I think it was federal. That's the one that I thought was the most logical one that he would have been trying to do. And then another 4 would say, I'm not so sure about the campaign thing, whether he was focused on that, but he sure knew that by putting down $420,000 as ordinary and necessary legal expenses that he hadn't actually spent because he was reimbursing the hush money, that was a tax fraud in the making, or an attempted tax fraud. 4 of them would say one thing, 4 of them would say the other. They would get off on this thing. I think it was his taxes. No, I think it was the campaign finance thing. And they would have a lack of unanimity. But with them only having to find that there was some unlawful purpose in the cover-up, that the boosted up charge, the bumped up charge to a felony was just a cover-up with an unlawful purpose, I thought it was very plain and simple that they had proven that beyond a reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of all 12. So I guess my overall thinking about the case is very significant, very historic to have a former president of the United States, and to have Trump, who's going to get the Republican nomination, to have this person convicted of multiple felony counts. No doubt significant, no doubt historic. But in terms of its actual impact on the race, I don't think it's really going to have that much. I think it's kind of baked in by the Republicans, by the Democrats, either way. And it may affect some swing voters, but I think that really remains to be seen from a political point of view. From a legal point of view, he's allowed to run, Mark. He's allowed to serve. He's going to be nominated. I don't think he's going to get any prison time. I mean,
that was what I was going to. Chad in Reno writes today, will he do any jail time, David? And you're saying no, he won't.
I don't think that the judge has discretion to give him up to 4 years. I just think that there are a lot of factors. Apparently, this is a Class E felony. It's a felony, no doubt about it. He's going to be a convicted felon unless he wins his appeal, and then it all gets thrown out and they start over again. If it's not a harmless error. And I think that at least on this issue of jury instructions, that would not be a harmless error. That would be an error that was one that would merit a new trial. But I just don't think that it's going to have, that much real impact because, it's a Class E felony. A is the worst. E is, lesser. Apparently 70% of people do get probation on that charge, even the ones convicted of the Class E felony. The fact that there are 34, as I say, once you do one, you do it all 34. So that, people say he's the president of the United States, former president of the United States, now charged with 34. Like, oh my God, that makes it 34 times as bad as if he'd been charged with one. That's not the reality of the situation. And with all of the imbroglios and, in my opinion, crimes and frauds that Trump has gotten involved in, this man has a clean record. Go figure. But the man is a first offender. So he's a first offender. 70% of the people get probation. On top of all of that, it is an older case. I just don't think he's going to get any prison time at all, including on the contempt for violating the gag order.
Well, you anticipated my next question. I mean, he's got these
contempt. 1 day in prison, and I don't think that he's going to get home detention because that look of him being on home detention and being impeded in any way after July 11th, when the sentencing is going to be, that's when the home detention would kick in. It's too much in the campaign season. It looks too much like it would boomerang. The people who think, I was on with Nikki Maduro after your show yesterday, as she was reveling in it. And I just said, look, you may be reveling in it, but you know what? If your goal is to make sure that Trump does not get back into office again, prison sentence, even a home detention sentence, is counterproductive, I believe, to those goals. I'm not a political scientist, but that's my take on it from just, being so much a part of this legal commentary of it.
Yeah, I don't see it as a political winner. As you suggested, it's already baked in. A lot of the reaction and poll numbers would seem to reflect that it's baked in. And here's the other thing. The fundraising that was done after the verdict, it was so feverish that the Trump site crashed. And so they raised, I believe, $35 million overnight. That ain't nothing. So this idea is sort of a politically persecuted figure. To me, it's absurd, of course, and to you it may be absurd, but enough people buy it and also are jihadists when it comes to trying to take back power that they view this as a real warning shot across their bow type thing, and they're going to step up any way they can. So with the legal machinations continuing, and you suggesting that even on the contempt there'll be no additional, there's be no amplification of this to the point that he would go to prison or even to house arrest. Let me just ask you, how then do you handle the contempt charges? I mean, you were talking about the fact that they are handled at the end during sentencing. What do? You just charge him a few more $1,000 and he's on his way?
I think he'll be charged a few more $1,000. I think that's sort of the reality, and he'll appeal all of this regarding the gag order. And I think that the gag order was a little bit not wise, to the extent that it stopped him Trump from commenting back on Michael Cohen and on Stormy Daniels, who were publicizing their criticism of him. It just seemed to me that, if they were criticizing him in the media, in fairness, he should have been allowed to criticize them back in the media. I think that he played that to his favor, that he was being gagged. And I think that, regarding the jurors, that was obviously out of line, but I think he did tamp it down regarding the jurors, and making comments like, it's an all Manhattan jury. They voted against me 85%. It was a terrible venue here. They want to write a book, whatever. I mean, that's not endangering them. It just seems to me that that's probably not a wise place for a punishment to go at this point. And again, what would the punishment be at this point? I mean, he could bring him in the day of his sentencing, and he could say, okay, I'm also sentencing you now for contempt of court on the gag order. So I'm going to have you step back into this holding room, and I'm going to make you be there for 3 hours with your Secret Service agents. What is the real rub that would be on Trump, as compared with that photo would go all over the world to his backers and everything else? So I think, sometimes the better part of discretion is not to overreact. And I think that the judge has to be very careful not to overreact. I said from the beginning of the case that I thought this judge got played by Trump by saying, under New York law, you have to be in my courtroom. You have to be in my courtroom every day. It would have been so much wiser to say, you know what? I know that that's the rule in general. This is an extraordinary case. I'm making a waiver in this case. You can come any day you want to, not come any day you don't want to. There are more important things that you need to do, like campaign. You go and do them. And you know what? Trump would have lost this great talking point that he had, and he would have been in court almost every single day because he wanted to monitor those witnesses and confront them, right?
Yeah, but you know what, David? I'm sorry, but I take issue with you. On the legal stuff, I yield to you on everything. But on this one thing where you sort of suggest that he can make rhetorical hay or political hay of it, I don't know about that. No matter what happened with this case, you knew that Trump was going to claim, I can't believe this. This judge is in the tank for Biden, et cetera. And there's this thing that we do where we kind of want to give him a break so there won't be a talking point or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big a break is given. The talking points are there, and they will manipulate whatever event that they must to get that talking point. So I don't know that it would have made a difference in that regard.
Mark, let me ask you this question. We pick up the newspaper a month from now, and we see that a state prosecutor near the border in Texas has charged Biden with an offense down there in Texas. Because he and Ali Mayorkas, the head of DHS, have supposedly conspired under state law to allow aliens to come into the United States. Okay. And there's going to be a trial. And the judge intones that, under Texas law, you have to be in my courtroom every single day. And so Biden and Mayorkas are now, and especially Biden, is pinned down there for 6 weeks. Let's assume that he makes a presidential argument. He makes this argument that
he's a sitting president. Exactly.
You can't do that to me under federalism, and that is rejected by the Texas state courts, and the U.S. Supreme Court keeps its hands off it. People would howl, Mark, if that judge in Texas said, Biden, you have to be in my courtroom 6 weeks. It would have been so much wiser if that were to happen. If the judge said, you know what? President Biden, you go where you need to go. You campaign where you need to go. You can not be in my courtroom, no matter what Texas law says. That would be just so much smarter. So on this particular issue, I know that Trump will make hay of everything, but I think they played into his hands on this one. I think the judge was being a little bit too, I'm the judge, I'm imperial, these are the rules, I'm going to treat you like everyone else. You can't treat him like everyone else. You have to use discretion. On that point, the idea of no one's above the law, President Biden, you need to sit in that courtroom for 6 weeks in the heart of the campaign season. No, people like you and me, I think, would have said that that was totally unfair. And what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's the rule of law.
The idea somehow that a regular citizen with 34 counts on the guilty side would do jail time. True or false? Is that a reasonable notion or not?
70% of normal people convicted of this offense do not do jail time. They get probation, 70%. You have to figure the 30%, some of them are people with prior criminal records, and some of them, it involves a lot more money. Remember, he's got the $500 million civil case that involved a huge amount of money. This one involves $130,000 in hush money when it got grossed up so that Cohen wouldn't get hit with a big tax bill that would make it undesirable for Cohen to have done this for Trump. It went to 420. 420,000 or 130,000 is, in the scheme of things, not that much money. So you'd have to say if this were an ordinary person, it seems to me they would be in the 30%. They don't have a prior criminal record. It's a fairly small amount of money given falsifying business records for, you can imagine you could falsify millions of dollars worth of business records. I think that this is a case that calls for probation. And then the issue is what would be the conditions of probation? And to the extent the conditions of probation were anything that were onerous to Trump in running, you're going to have the argument that it's election interference. And if it were imposed, ask yourself, whatever condition is imposed on Trump, how about if Biden got convicted?
The same thing, right. Right.
Would that be fair to Biden? If it's not fair to Biden, it wouldn't be fair to. That's who's clashing. That's it. It's going to be one of those two, and that's all it's about. It's not about RFK Jr. It's not about anything else. That those two running against each other, and what's fair for one is fair for the other. I know what you're going to say. You're going to say Biden hasn't been convicted of anything. Trump has been, but that's not the way that it's perceived. And I think that, discretion is the better part of judicial valor in this case for the sentencing judge.
So. The reality is just what you've described. It'll be a probation. They're asking in the chat repeatedly. So if that's all there is, it's probation for 3 years or something like that. And you're saying, yeah, and that's reasonably fair.
This was a case that the federal prosecutors under the Biden administration declined. They did not go on it. The DA went on it, I think, did a masterful job in the prosecution. I was on last night a show called The Other Side of Midnight. It's on WABC radio for insomniacs in New York. Sure. And I was on with a really hardcore Trump supporter. I mean, this
WABC
guy,
is like, they are right wingers too.
This guy could have written Trump's speeches. It was the same thing. This is unprecedented. This is awful. This is the end of democracy. This is the end of the rule of law. Everybody should be impeached. All the prosecutors should go to jail on this case and stuff like that. Trump doesn't really have very many arguments. This case tried very, very well. Michael Cohen went in, was a very persuasive witness. He was much more persuasive because he kept his cool in the case where the $500 million was returned. The judge said that an impartial judge said that he was a very persuasive witness. I thought he was very persuasive in this case, Mark. I always say the New York Post could say liar, perjurer, thief, ranter and raver, manipulator, and guess what? Very believable on the facts that Trump knew and intended to commit this crime. And they kept saying, this whole issue of the jury instructions, that was all they pounded away at, the jury instructions. And what's interesting is that we former federal prosecutors, I think, take this argument more seriously than the former DAs. The former DAs in New York said, this is par for the course. There's a cover-up. That's what bumped it up. There was a felony cover-up with unlawful intent. That's all you need. All these guys saying they should have been a special verdict and they should have had to pick criminal tax, criminal campaign finance violation. They think that we're all wet, that we're overanalyzing it, and they think it's a pretty easy case on appeal for the prosecution. And I think the other issues are really insubstantial. So I think at the end of the day, and it'll be years from now, there'll be a final judgment on appeal that Trump is guilty of all 34 counts. I'm just saying that I think it would be a huge mistake, and it would be a little contrary to the law and what happens to ordinary people found guilty of this Class E felony who don't have a criminal record to give him any jail time or even home detention time. I know people want to see, especially Michael Cohen with the T-shirt, And he's gotten away with so many things, Trump. He's been so not held accountable. I mean, January 6th, we're going to have in just a couple of weeks a decision on January 6th. I'm hoping that while there may not be time for a trial, there'll be time for an evidentiary hearing, Mark, which will really bring back home to people the awful things. I mean, whatever Trump did in this case, to me, they aren't awful things. January 6th and Mar-a-Lago are absolutely awful things. The latter, it really did, was counter to the national security of this country, dangerous to this country, and the total selfishness of Trump.
You're talking about the document, taking the documents, jacking them to Mar-a-Lago. That's what you're talking about.
Taking the documents, keeping the documents. We've talked about this till the cows come home, that I don't think Jack Smith, who's done a very good job, should have taken a 1 in 3 chance of that case going in front of Judge Cannon. Now she's talking about his improprieties, not her own improprieties. And you can guess that that's going to happen because she's got a huge amount of power with her black robe. Unless she's taken off that case, she can make Jack Smith's life miserable. That's the reality of, we have these kings and queens on the federal bench. They're like gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus. They really are. They're the closest thing we have to gods and goddesses of Mount Olympus.
Yeah, these judges and justices, I will say this, it's rich to see and hear the GOP come out in lockstep claiming that the justice system is not fair, it's fixed, it's targeted against Donald Trump. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? You have the Supreme Court, which is completely stolen, and totally in the tank for Trump, to the point that Alito is flying a flag above his homes, suggesting how much in the tank he is and his wife is for the GOP and for the causes associated with Donald Trump. You have Eileen Cannon, as you just suggested, who has parked the case that would cut right through all the noise and clearly show Trump to be who he is, having corrupted the entire system of national security, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there are many, many more examples of the way that the system is bent over backwards to accommodate Trump. So yes, the fix is in for Trump. Still, despite all of that, we get a guilty a conviction and verdict in this Trump case in New York.
It's great that he was held accountable. And I said to people last night, because everyone was talking about this, I said, if you're unhappy about the fact that he's not going to go to prison on this case, think if it had gone the other way. Think if he were right now trumpeting his acquittal by that jury. That did not happen. As I said, I thought they presented a very good case. When I was debating this fellow last night for an hour on the other side of midnight, I was 11 o'clock my time. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. You wonder. So we had all the insomniacs in New York, and they were all calling it. It was really a fascinating show. And I pointed out that, Trump, in the court of public opinion, he didn't take the stand. Think how devastating that is. Under the Fifth Amendment, in court, you can't comment on the fact that the defendant didn't take the stand and defend, himself or herself. But in the old days, before the Fifth Amendment was interpreted that way, every prosecutor would say 30 steps. 30 steps, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. 30 steps is all the defendant needed to take from where he sits right there and claims he's not guilty to getting on the stand and telling you what actually happened. That's a totally fair argument in the court of public opinion. Trump said he wanted to talk to Mueller, then he never did give any kind of statement to Mueller under oath. He never would let himself be deposed or questioned under oath orally by Mueller. Then he said he absolutely wanted to testify in this case. He never took the stand in this case. He could have gotten up there in the court of public opinion and said, Michael Cohen is lying. He never explained this thing to me. He could have said, I was worried about my wife. I didn't want my wife to find out this was going to happen. That was going to happen. I didn't want my kids to know. I went to a lot of efforts to not tell my kids. That time when he called on the phone, the 96 seconds, I remember that one. All that he talked about was with my body man about that 14-year-old who was stalking him. He could have gone back and explained the records. Trump didn't do any of that. And the one witness that he called blew up in his face. They had great cross-examination on that guy. Trump's lawyers, after they got millions of dollars to defend him, called that guy anyway. And they knew what the cross-examination was going to be. They were so arrogant that I guess they thought, well, these professional prosecutors are a bunch of dummies who are going to miss it. They had all the cross-examination on that guy Costello, and they ate him alive. And then there was no more defense. So Trump going out on the courthouse steps is not a defense. So the case tried very well. And I pointed this all out on the radio last night, debating the Trumpster. And he said maybe his lawyers were ineffective. His lawyers were not ineffective. Trump's lawyers had very little to work with.
Let me just ask you, as a defense attorney, you mentioned the Trump testimony that we didn't see. He didn't take the stand. Would you have counseled him? Explain to me why it would have been a bad thing for Donald Trump to take the stand as a defense attorney.
It would have been a bad thing. First, the judge had said what he would allow the cross-examination to be about. He kept out many of the, of the frauds that Trump had done, but some of them were quite relevant. So Trump would have been asked about instances where Trump had lied, and so it would have been like, okay, they pointed out that Cohn lied. They would have pointed out that Trump lied. He lied about this. He lied about that. He committed fraud. Some of the stuff would have been too prejudicial to even cross-examine him about, like, let's say, the E. Jean Carroll stuff. So the judge made very clear, and that's going to be one of his issues on appeal. That was one of Harvey Weinstein's issues on appeal. Weinstein won. The judge tells you ahead of time under New York law, if you take the stand, Mr. Defendant, I'm going to allow you to be asked about these 5 areas. I'm not going to allow you to be asked about those other 5 areas. In the Weinstein case, too many would have been allowed in. And so what a defendant like Weinstein or Trump does is they say, well, given you're going to allow those 5 things to be asked about me, and you're wrong, judge, on the law, I'm not going to take the stand. I'm going to appeal that and say that I would have taken the stand and I should get a new trial because you would have asked me too many things. The judge made that error 4-3, the highest court in New York said. The judge made that error in the Weinstein case. That was one of the 2 reasons that Weinstein is getting a new trial. Trump's going to try to play that same card, but I think this judge, knowing the Weinstein decision had been decided the way it was decided, he didn't make the same mistake. He circumscribed more what Trump would have been cross-examined about. But even so, the cross-examination of Trump would have been brutal, and he showed himself to be a terrible witness the few times he has been under oath. You remember the deposition where he says, that E. Jean Carroll, she wasn't my type, she didn't appeal to me. So they showed him a photograph when he was under oath, the deposition of her, and said, who's that? Is that my daughter Ivanka? Well, we know that he thinks she's like the most beautiful girl in the world. So he confuses the photo of the woman who's of no appeal to him at all for his beautiful daughter. And he did that all under oath. And he said a bunch of other really stupid, self-incriminating things under oath. So there was no way that any competent attorney was going to call him to the stand. But in the court of public opinion, when he says these were all lies and I was railroaded, the fact that he could have taken the stand and explained his side of the story, and he didn't, I think that's important. And he could have tried to call that CFO of his, Mark. The fact that the guy had been convicted of perjury, if that CFO could have really helped him, if he'd have said, look, all those figures that I wrote down on there, those figures that I wrote down, Trump had nothing to do with it. I kept Trump in the dark. Here's what I actually did. Here's the different things that I did to keep him in the dark. So I generated that famous list of how we were going to split up the $420,000. But Trump was completely ignorant of it. Let me explain how. He had the power of subpoena. He could have called that guy to the stand. And the reason he didn't call, Weisselberg's already gone to jail twice for him. The whole thing, Mark, is so unbelievable. They have a $2 million deal that this Weisselberg is going to keep getting the $2 million. And I got to tell you, I'd be a pretty tough judge on some things. I'd be pretty, I think, middle of the road on most things, but I'd be pretty tough on some things. And when I realized that the guy was going to get $2 million from Trump, right? And then I had a chance to sentence him, I wouldn't have given him 5 months. I'd have made him wait a lot more than 5 months before he got his hands on that corrupt $2 million if I were the judge. So Weisselberg, the CFO, knows he gets out of jail. He's going to start getting the $2 million. And you also wonder if Trump has something else on some other people near and dear to Weisselberg. And so Weisselberg figures, I'll be the hero of this story. I'll take the fall, and other people near and dear to me will go on with their lives because Trump knows too much.
Well, the Weisselberg part of the Trump organization is wild because we know a lot based on the fact that there was a divorce proceeding going on, and the ex of one of, was it his son or, yeah, there was some ex, the ex-wife, as these divorce proceedings were going, she just sang like a canary, as I recall. I mean, that was, this is how we know a lot of those details. But Weisselberg did take the fall for him. It's interesting that Weisselberg would have been someone to call for Trump. Go ahead.
He took 2 falls and went to Rikers Island prison 2 times, and he's there as we speak, serving that 5-month sentence. But when he gets out, he's supposed to get this big chunk of change.
Is there some concierge level at Rikers that we don't know about? Or he's there with maybe there's like breakfast, croissant, coffee in the morning. Because most of what I've seen in Rikers is pretty unforgiving.
If you're in the health unit, if you're in the infirmary or something like that, apparently you get better treatment because after all, you're in the medical unit. And that's where Harvey Weinstein was. And there was a lot of controversy in the New York tabloids that he was getting concierge service over there. God only knows. None of it's. If you've ever been to one of those prisons, those serious, not the federal ones, which are kind of a different bag, but those state ones, you just think to yourself, oh my God, I'm going to obey the letter of the law always, all the time, as to everything. The best way, I'll tell you, as a criminal defense lawyer and a former prosecutor, the best way you never have to deal with any of this stuff, do the right thing, do the legal thing, sleep like a baby.
Go ahead, Kim.
House Republicans are pretty upset. And the House Judiciary Chairman, Jim Jordan, today, we know, says he plans to request testimony from the DA Alvin Bragg, and also from Prosecutor Matthew Colangelo. He said the hearing will focus on what he called the unprecedented political prosecution of President Trump. So it's not clear yet if Alvin Bragg will agree to appear before this panel. But my question based on that is there going to be backlash against all the people that were involved in this trial? I don't know if they necessarily had a choice. The prosecutor might not have had a choice. It's told by the DA, you got to prosecute the case. And so I don't know. Is there going to be some type of repercussion or consequence for people that were involved in the prosecution of Trump?
Well, I don't think any of the prosecutors were conscripted into this case. I mean, this is the case of a lifetime. I think most of the prosecutors were very eager to work on it. Any kind of political or personal retaliation should be ruled out. But I mean, I think that's what's going to happen here. That's exactly what's going to happen here. As to Colangelo, they made a big deal about him. And just to talk about him for 30 seconds. So Colangelo is a very, very smart guy who, when Biden comes into office, he makes him an acting high official in the Department of Justice federally. But he doesn't end up getting the job, I think the number 3 job at Justice. Somebody else gets it. Colangelo works there because, again, he's a very smart guy. And then he thinks, what am I going to do with my career now? And then this case is going on in the DA's office in New York. And he says, you know what, I'm going to apply for that job. And he gets that job. But that is the only shred of connection. That's the only tiny little hook that Trump has to say, you see, it's all a Biden thing. They're all trying to get me. This guy had a right to go on with his career, get one great job at the Department of Justice, and then get his next great job, which was being on the panel or being on the group that prosecuted Trump. I mean, it's, as Trump would say, it's really a nothing burger, but they tried to hang their hat on that. As to Bragg, I mean, they can do stuff like that. And I mean, Bragg will have whatever privileges he may have not to testify, but I think to some extent he'll have to testify, and there'll be some publicly available information that I think that he'll have to provide. And I think Bragg has nothing to hide. Bragg evaluated the case. You remember that? First, he didn't go on the case. He had the couple of people that his predecessor had hired. One of them wrote a book. But I think Bragg, he hired good people. He had good people try the case. The people who tried the case, like Colangelo, they have nothing to hide either. There are certain things that may be privileged in the case, and Congress can't get those things that are privileged. Something was properly placed under seal by the judge. I think there's going to be an effort to try to unseal it. They'll try to say, oh, it's under seal. This is the Democratic judge. But it's interesting. Last night, they were blasting the judge in that case, Merchan. And what was interesting was that Merchan was actually picked by Bloomberg. He was apparently a Bloomberg favorite, and Mayor Bloomberg, who's no flaming liberal, for God's sake, when they had the Republican convention in New York City that renominated W, he rounded up thousands and thousands of people, stuck them on some pier to stop them from demonstrating. Bloomberg and his administration had to pay millions of dollars for their civil rights violations against demonstrators against W. That's the guy who liked Judge Merchan. I mean, give it a rest,
Well, I'm also, it is true. This is, Maud points this out. It's rich that Jim Jordan, who is the fire-breathing dragon of the right on Capitol Hill, didn't honor his own subpoena, and yet he's subpoenaing the, Alvin Bragg. It's comical almost,
Great point, Maud. Do as I say, not as I do. Jordan Botto.
Look, you're so great to respond to this last-minute request for your take and analysis. It's been great. You've been so accurate. I'll remind everyone that, David started this kind of saying, I don't know if there is a case here. It was turned down, at the federal level, et cetera, and yet, and by the prior DA. But then you began to look at the specifics in a different way, see the various pieces of the case that were brought, and you said, I actually think that they're going to prevail here, that they're going to get a guilty verdict. And you were right.
I thought starting with Pecker and the National Enquirer, the catch and kill thing, put it all in brilliant context, involved Trump right from the beginning in the conspiracy, showed that it also involved McDougal as well as Stormy Daniels. And I think Stormy Daniels and Michael Cohen were both much better witnesses than you would have predicted ahead of time, much more persuasive, much more poised on the stand. And, those things matter. And then the defense was very weak. I thought the body man was going to hit the stand. I thought that they would somehow get Weisselberg up there and he'd have an epiphany that Trump wasn't involved. But if you're a cynic, you think, you know what, he'd already gone to jail twice for Trump. And he didn't want to go to jail a third time by committing what would have been probably deemed perjury. And so Weisselberg stayed clear of it. And so it ended up trying very well for the prosecution. And it didn't try well at all, despite the millions of dollars he spent on his lawyers. It didn't try well for Trump. And he
they also, those lawyers seem to be, forwarding certain arguments in court that were designed to kind of land well with Trump, was my take on it, not so much legally, based on what you were saying. Get the question from yesterday, Mark. Yeah, the question for David. We're running out of time, or we've run out of time, but I'll still ask. Many people are asking David Katz, why did you go from being a federal prosecutor to a defense lawyer? Can you speak to that quickly?
There are a lot of cliques in the government, and the two federal prosecutors I was very close to. One was Steve Trott, who hired me. He's still on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The other one was Robert Bonner, who was just a wonderful person, a wonderful prosecutor. He became a federal judge. So I thought I would go into private practice. A really good firm offered me a position. And I thought I would try the criminal defense side. And it ended up being, I thought, really fascinating. I've enjoyed it ever since. And, once you become a criminal defense attorney, unless you get a super high job, you don't tend to go back to being a prosecutor. Someone like Ali Mayorkas, who went from being in the same U.S. attorney's office as I was, and then he went into private practice, and then he got the deputy DHS, job. So no one's offered me.
I love that David Katz calls Alejandro Mayorkas Ali Mayorkas. That's how you guys really were pals, I guess.
And so no one's offered me DHS deputy or DHS head, but I would probably go back to the government if they did.
Why isn't Katz still a roadie, asks Phineas. Yeah, there you go. Roadie you missed it for the Barkays and for Isaac Hayes.
That was a fantastic job, but I decided to, what's the line in Maggie May? I decided I could have gone on, go back to school, right? Remember?
Yeah, that's right. I'm going back to school.
He could have been find a rock and roll band that needed a helping hand. So I worked for the rock and roll band that needed a helping hand, the funk band that needed a helping hand. But then I decided to go back to school.
Love our time with you. When we visit on Thursday, sir, I want to ask you about the Menendez case, because it's very interesting. I've been doing a lot of reading about the Menendez case, and he's trying to throw his wife under the bus, and it may not work out so well for him. So let's get to that on Thursday. David, thank you for all of your and this isn't over. We have sentencing on July 11th, right? So this continues. David Katz, everybody. Thanks, David.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, man, he is good. So very good. Thank you, everybody, for contributing questions, and I thought we got to as many as we could. And I also want to thank you, and I'll take a minute to thank the crowd that funds us. Charles says thanks for the insights. Thank you, David from Dillette. On the super sticker front, Candace Worthman. Big shout out to Candace Worthman.
Big shout out.
We're a crowd-funded show, so we like to give the shout to those who, in the crowd, fund us. Candace is one of them. Really cool. Ron as well.
Big shout out.
How about a Ron Cook 20 on a Friday? Love it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ron Cook. And Ray. What up, Ray?
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ray.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Ray Perrin. A $20 super chat. David Katz, you're the best. Agreed. Really terrific. Really appreciate the support and the input, guys. Smash the like button like a boss,
Smash
if you
it
would.
with your
Smash
iron
that
rod.
thumbs up, man. Smash that thumbs up. Now, Albert, what do you want to do? I have to get to Kim. We got a big helping of David Katz, even more than I thought he would possibly give us. Then I have Friday Fabulous Florida. You are the curator of that. How is Friday Fabulous Florida today?
It's good. I removed one story, so we're one story short because just for time purposes.
Time.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah, I understand that. What would you like to do, Albert? I mean, I'm kind of up against it, but I really don't want to. I don't know if you're aware of this, Albert, but Kim's news to me is my North Star.
Yeah.
It's the thing that is a framework for all that we do on the show. And it's for that reason that I don't like to blow it off. You know what I mean? I really don't.
We just don't have time for the time wasters right now. We got to get right to it. We need to get immediately to Florida.
All right.
Or Michael Shure will be here, and then he'll be waiting, and then
I
that's not
see.
good.
You'll be backed up before. This is why
And
Albert's
he could be watching hockey.
in the captain's chair, and these are the difficult decisions that you make, Albert. Well, I'll leave it to you with my lengthy preamble. But wait a minute. Before you render your decision, Judge Albert, I have to
Albert, thank you.
want to acknowledge this. A $45 contribution.
Big shout out.
David S. said, celebrating the conviction of the 45th President of the United States. And my 45th wedding anniversary, David says.
There's never been anything like this.
Wow.
Yay!
That is terrific. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Yeah. We love wedding anniversaries.
There's a reason that this place is fun.
45 years of fun. Wow. 45 years. How many years have you been married, Kim?
22.
Wow, that is insane.
What?
That's a long time. And it seems like just yesterday, doesn't it?
No.
Kim, how are you?
Oh. Well, I'm not going to ask you how many of those years have been happy.
Oh, they've all been happy.
Marriage is work.
I'm
All
so
relationships are work, right?
joyful. Yeah.
And it's also joyful. Is that what you said?
I'm so joyful. No, it's you have to decide that this is what you want.
Sure.
And then, because there's always going to be someone that you could love someone so much and they could still annoy the holy hell out of you.
Right.
So it's
That's
just
not
a matter
fake.
of
That's real.
deciding that that this is what you want and committing to that. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's cool that it's worked out for you. I mean, there is a great example of it working out in David S. and his
45
45th
years.
wedding anniversary that coincides with the 45th President of the United States being convicted. $45 is what he tosses in through Super Chat. That's pretty cool. And Vilma, big shout out.
Big shout out.
Thanks for having Katsadamas on. Love his perspectives on the law. Thank you, Vilma, for a $5 Super Chat. And I agree. I mean, he's brilliant. And you also see his brilliance in the way he takes the defense side. He drew out the Biden scenario by which Biden could be called into court based on the Mayorkas Biden subpoena type thing down in some Texas court. I thought it was really interesting. What is this? Sal and Cal, $20 Super Chat, because I love in capital letters the word convicted in
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Sal. Wow. It's true. That convicted thing is huge, isn't it? Nutritionist Liz with a $5 Super Chat in celebration for the new drops and because you're kind of a big deal sometimes.
Do you know who I am?
I am kind
of a big deal.
Well, I do remind you that we've got...
Oh, girl, baby girl. Don't even play.
Yeah, that is our newest drop, and we are into it.
You've
all
really
right.
done it. You've done it now. Now we're going to be late. We're running behind.
Now we really are running behind, but I need to acknowledge these people who are so much a part of the show. They keep us going. If if Michael Shure would send in a $45 super chat, then I would stop the show to talk to Michael Shure. I'm just saying. I'm not. Somebody in a comment yesterday or the day before said, you could advertise on Mark's forehead. They said, I read it, and I actually responded to it by saying, please do advertise on my forehead. I'm happy to, I'll wear whatever you want right here. I'll wear it for the first hour, whatever. Let's make a deal, okay? This show is listener supported, and I'm happy to wear some advertiser's slogan on my forehead, if that's the deal. Beth Farmer, sweet words, guilty, guilty, and guilty. Thank you.
Big shout out.
Big shout out. Yeah. Thank you for the $20 super chat.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, really wild. Wow. He really got the guilty, guilty, guilty. No question about that.
Good day, sir.
Yeah, it was all over. Well, Albert, without any further delay, I think we have no choice. I think Kim is accurate. I think sadly, the choice has been, it's been taken from you, pal, because of my own attention to our viewers.
I mean, they help keep the lights on, so we need those people here.
Exactly. So next we'll do some Florida, but first a little bit of a musical interlude.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
Who's Mark Thompson?
Oh, girl, baby girl.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
Don't even play.
%100% effective. How about that?
There is no defense for my conduct.
Joe Fish, Sal the Shoemaker, Joe Box, and Little Anthony.
Mo Black's brother, Fat Andy.
Do you know what we're here for?
Smash it with your iron rod.
Do you know what we're here for?
Seriously, what the?
Love our Patreon and PayPal subscribers. Those of you who have actually upped your commitment on a monthly basis to supporting this show, you're the reasons that we're still here. It's a weird thing. We're essentially completely listener supported and viewer supported. This is a radio show that came out of that world of radio where it's just ads. You know, they buy ads on your show and that supports you. We don't have that anymore. We don't have a sales department selling the show. That's why we have to stop, and we want to stop and acknowledge the people who actually make the show happen. That's you, Patreon and PayPal supporters, and all of you who've been so generous with super stickers and super chats, and you're in there every day, and it just means so much. That's the reason we're here. So thank you. Those of you who haven't joined our Patreon or PayPal crew but would like to, the links to Patreon and PayPal underneath every video, you'll find a hot link, and you can just go from there for, whatever you. How much is one ad on my forehead? How dare you? Make an offer is what I would say. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Albert, we cannot put it off anymore. Let's do it. Fridays, we bring on Friday Fabulous Florida.
It's time for Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
A look at the weirdest stories from our weirdest state.
Start our Friday Fabulous Florida offerings, curated by producer Albert, with a man who gets lost in the woods. He was lost in the woods and desperate. He called for help. When you're lost, you call. James Robert Lombardi, 43, called for help on a Saturday morning, lost in a wooded area between the Branford Greenway Trail and the Suwannee River. There he is. And you can see in his booking photo kind of a neutral expression we are compelled to evaluate and then apply a numerical value to the booking photo. It is the booking photo meter. And so I ask you, Kim, what would you assign as a numerical value to his booking photo, please?
I kind of need to know what he's charged with.
This is not Albert. How can she ask a question like that?
Why are you yelling?
I just reviewed the other day.
Did the charges match the photo, right?
Oh, my God. I don't know.
Like, does he look like a guy that, did crime X?
Kim, how are you?
All right. The answer is it's his booking photo is a 4. All right. Now, moving on. You're not supposed to know. You're supposed to evaluate separately. I've reviewed it before, and I'm not going to review it again.
It gets a 6 in my book.
Okay. Suwannee County Sheriff's Office, they got into action. They went to the woods. They began searching for Lombardi. Law enforcement found him within an hour, brought him back to the Ivy Park boat ramps, from which I suppose he had become lost initially. He was excited to be found, as you might imagine, but the joy did not last long because law enforcement officers who had located him told him that he had, anyone?
Warrants out for his arrest?
Yes, warrants out for his arrest. Exactly. Well done. He had an active arrest warrant for violation of probation. Well, while searching Lombardi before taking him to jail for that warrant violation, authorities said they found a small amount of, anybody?
Methamphetamines.
I would have guessed meth also, but we were looking for marijuana, everyone. That would have been the actual,
That doesn't sound so bad. Is it not
No,
legal
I don't
there?
think marijuana's a big deal.
Where are my
but
weed smokers at?
Apparently, it's a big deal when you're on probation. Again, I think that's like finding somebody with a beer, but whatever. I'm not the king. Anyway, it was in the pocket of his shorts. He also had a glass smoking pipe, vial containing, anybody? There was a vial containing something else, not marijuana.
Crack.
Nope. We wanted you to go back to meth. All right. So he had the meth.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah. He had the weed and the meth. Hey, it was a party. Everything's fun until you get lost in the woods.
That's right.
Good luck to him. He'll have some explaining to do. A 20-year-old Florida woman caught having sex on a public pier. The cops move in. They want to stop it.
It's kind of exciting.
She's in flagrante.
Yes.
On a public pier in Naples, Florida. As the cops moved in, what did she do? She dived into the water.
Oh.
She fled the cops in the water. There she is, her booking photo. Alicia Razzo, 20 years old, on the Mark Thompson Show booking photo meter.
Wow.
It's hard to be 20 and not look great. And I'll tell you, I think she looks pretty good.
She gets
I would
a
give
9.
her, thank you. I was going to give her an 8. Yeah. You'll give her a 9. Well done.
What happened to her partner? I mean, she wasn't the only one. Takes 2.
Well,
Unless
Naples
she
cops,
was having a solo performance there.
Well, it could be woman and woman. I mean, it's funny that you just go man, woman. I mean, you in Libville.
I said partner.
Okay. I thought you, okay. Mo, you did? You didn't specify a gender? No. Then I, then I misspoke. I'm sorry.
I misspoke.
But it was a fellow.
The Naples Police Department moved in. Multiple reports came in. And there is the man who she was rolling around with. And on the booking photo meter, what do you give him?
I'm giving him a 9 as well.
I agree. I think he's a handsome fella.
Yeah.
So Razzo and Zadok Westfield, who's 23, they were still at it, according to reports, when officers arrived. As the two scrambled to put on their clothes, Razzo moved to the
iron rod.
moved to the edge of the pier and jumped in, despite the officer's commands to stay where she was. Westfield, the gentleman who you see there, was completely naked when the cops arrived, and he did stay at the scene. He did not flee. He had a story that they had been swimming, and they intended to jump off the pier, but wound up having sex instead, which is I just think
it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Yeah, instead of the swim, you think the idea to...
Yeah.
People were calling in, though, and they were angry, and that's the problem with it. People, had kids around, and,
Sure, yeah.
A Florida woman wearing a police jacket is accused of robbing a man inside his home. Well, the guy was zip-tied, lying on the floor, and was found that way by his neighbor.
Sounds like she had some police skills.
The man told deputies the two suspects who came in and did this to him, a man and a woman, had stolen his tablet, phone, handgun, and money.
Don't they both look like sad sacks with their downturned lips, their frowns?
Yes, these are the two suspects who pulled this off with their police jackets. And you can offer separate numerical values for each. The booking photo meter on the left is the woman. What do you give her, Kim?
I'm going to give her a 6 because she really looks like she's playing the part here.
Angry, you mean?
Yeah.
And how about him?
He's the same, I think. Yeah.
6 and a 6.
They're quite
All
the
right.
pair. Yeah.
They came in. They were wearing these jackets. The woman wearing a police jacket. Unclear if the guy was wearing a police jacket. But anyway, he said that he recognized this woman because she'd previously helped him clean his house, but he didn't recognize the man. During the investigation, they identified 31-year-old Kayla Berlinski and 28-year-old James Rohrer as the suspects. You see them there. Kayla Berlinski, was arrested for armed home invasion, kidnapping, grand theft of a firearm, and impersonating a law enforcement officer. Rohrer, I guess, didn't have that jacket on because he was only arrested for armed home invasion, kidnapping, and grand theft of a firearm. No impersonation of a firearm involved. The man who was zip-tied is said to be fine. A Florida man bites at a bar manager's finger. Oh. It was an incident about a dog. It led to a brawl. It happened over Memorial Day weekend, Kim. And it's sad to say that Memorial Day, a day of solemnity and reflection, could somehow be sullied with a fight like this. But Kenneth Alvin Davis, 27, there he is. He's from Madeira Beach, Florida.
He kind of looks like, other than the forehead, he kind of looks a little like John Hamm.
You're right, he's handsome.
Yeah.
Another handsome guy who is hauled into custody. What do you give him on the booking photo meter, please?
Drunken bar fight, huh? I'll give him a 7.5.
All right, 7.5. Congratulations, Kenneth Alvin Davis. You could probably call him Ken after giving him a 7.5. The manager defended himself from Davis's initial lunge. Apparently, he lunged forward. That's what happened. The whole thing is that he was there with a bunch of friends. He was unruly when they were told that he couldn't bring his dog into the Undertow Beach Bar. And apparently when he lunges, he bites at the bar manager's finger. The manager defended himself, punches him in the face, and then you've got a brawl. And the fight was just winding down when law enforcement got there. And finally, a Florida woman is arrested for battery with a cinnamon roll that she used.
What?
Yeah. A cinnamon roll is used in a battery case that I will tell you about. A woman,
doesn't seem that painful. Aren't they soft?
Well,
ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
Unless it was stale. Maybe if it was a stale one.
It was a soup kitchen in Florida. Oh. Anne Marie Luna, 36 years old. You see her here. I think she's very cute. I might give her close to a 9.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
These are, again, booking photo evaluations. These are the booking photo meter. This is not, we're not evaluating women or guys. Look, we're just talking about the overall look. I think she doesn't look angry. She looks kind of sympathetic almost. Look at her beautiful eyes as she looks at the camera.
She looks like she's ready to throw a cinnamon roll at whoever's looking at the picture.
Well, maybe we're interpreting the picture in different ways.
She looks tough. like she's ready to throw down.
She's got the neck tat, which is always a message. Anne Marie Luna, 36, arrested and charged with misdemeanor battery after the incident that unfolded at St. Vincent de Paul Cares in St. Petersburg. Apparently, she threw a cinnamon roll at the back of a man's head, hit him near the base of his neck. She admitted to the cops that she had thrown the pastry. It was also captured on security footage. He did not suffer any injuries, probably for the reasons that Kim has noted. I don't think a cinnamon roll is particularly dangerous, even if you're hit directly with it. She had to post $500 bond, and she has been released on her own personal recognizance.
Heather says, Cinnabon assault, don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's a Friday night.
Yeah.
Right. We have to pick a favorite. We don't want to, but we have to pick a favorite, and here are the stories just to remind you. Florida man found with drugs after getting lost in the woods. He called for help, but when they helped him and found him in the woods, they found A, he was violating probation, and there was a warrant out for that violation, and B, he had drugs, meth, and pot on him. Florida woman who's 20 caught having sex on a public pier with her boyfriend who's 23. She jumped into the water naked to escape the cops, which is all right. A Florida woman wearing a police jacket and joined by an accomplice accused of robbing a man inside his home. The Florida man biting the bar manager's finger over an incident about the dog being let into a bar. And finally, a Florida woman arrested for cinnamon roll battery. We need to pick a favorite. It's like picking between children. I'll ask you, Albert, first, what is leading in the chat?
The Florida woman, I have it titled Florida woman got off ... pier. So she's slightly in the lead over the wanted man calls cops while lost.
Very clever. Yeah. It's ahead of what? Of the wanted man in the woods?
Yeah,
Okay.
the one, yeah.
Albert, thank you. Do you agree with that? Do you like the woman jumping into the water naked?
I like the attempted cover up by the boyfriend that we were attempting to go swimming, but I do love in spirit of that man who was driving on a suspended license who zoomed into his court hearing.
That's pretty
the same
good.
energy for the wanted man in the woods. So I'm
right. It's same energy. That's a very good point.
Same energy calling on the cops basically on yourself, telling on yourself.
Kim, how about you? What do you prefer? What do you like? What is your favorite?
Kim, how are you?
Going with Cinnamon Girl. Yeah.
Cinnamon Girl was strong. I completely agree with that. Cinnamon Girl was strong. This is tough. I think the guy in the woods calling for help, and he's just, I don't know. That's very Florida. He's packing the meth. He's packing the pot. I mean, dude, this just in. When the guys get there, you don't think that there might be some kind of situation that would expose you to some sort of legal matter? I mean, just ditch the meth in the pot. It's Florida. You can pick up meth in the pot, you're tripping over it on your way to other meth and pot. So for those reasons and more, I'm, the guy in the woods. So in the end, guy in the woods edges out everybody else?
No, it's the Florida woman by 40% to 36%.
The cinnamon attack.
No, cinnamon is only at 20%.
Okay, I'm sorry. What?
Kim.
So it's the woman having sex?
Yeah, the woman followed by the woods, and then followed the.
I get it.
Cinnamon
Okay.
girl.
Good stuff. That's Friday Fabulous Florida for today.
This has been Friday Fabulous Florida.
There is a gigantic alligator in my kitchen.
Y'all come back now here.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Right on, everybody. It's our Friday show. Glad you could be here. We have Michael Shure with some political analysis on a week that's been consequential in many ways. Some things have been going on that are not related to the Trump trial that I want his take on. Will you let me know when Michael Shure arrives?
Yes, he is actually here.
He's not here yet, correct?
He is here.
Oh, he is here. Oh, okay. Well, then No. Okay. Okay.
The Mark Thompson Show.
This man has forgotten more about politics than most of us will ever know. He joins us on Fridays with a look back at the week and taking the temperature of the political atmosphere, both domestically and around the world. He's Michael Shure, everybody.
Hey, folks.
Look at you on the road, it looks like.
Yeah, in New York, actually, less than a mile from Trump Tower.
The Trump trial, the guilty verdict, you always hear this, I think, in the last, at one point or another in conversations related to the Trump verdict and the Trump trial in various analyses and networks and YouTube channels, et cetera. Well, it's baked in. I mean, this is baked in. It's already the reaction to the verdict itself. It's not going to have much of a. It's not going to be a difference maker in terms of his popular support. Can you speak to the effects of the verdict?
Well, I mean, in my estimation, the effects. It's going to affect. It's going to have a ripple effect. It's going to affect in many ways. First of all, you have to think about the what do they call it in math? The corollary or the corollary, which is I had a British teacher who taught me it's a corollary. Tony Godwin, wherever you are, thanks for teaching me corollary. It is had he been acquitted on all of these counts, it would have given a great deal of fuel to the people who think that it's a wild goose chase and it's a witch hunt and it's all of that. And that didn't happen, which in and of itself is a victory for the narrative that he is guilty of something, whether or not he wants to acknowledge it or the people that whose support he needs want to acknowledge it. The point is that it could have been terrible, and it ended up being exactly what people want. Democrats are funny. They God, I hope he's guilty. God, I hope he's guilty. Oh, I can't believe he's guilty, right? And that's not a way of thinking productively here. So what this does is, whether or not it hurts Trump, the people that support him, with great passion are not going anywhere. Their heels were already dug in. They could not be dug in any further. It will help those Republicans, I think, who cannot bring themselves to vote for Trump or Biden. It is, again, another repellent to voting for Trump, which could force them to Kennedy. But any votes that Trump should count on that he's not getting hurt him, right? And we're talking about, again, thin swaths of voters here. If you are someone who is a Democrat or a Republican who voted for Biden, you're not happy. You don't like Biden. You don't want to vote for him again. Voting for a felon is a very difficult thing for many people to do, to bring themselves to do. Again, could help Kennedy, could help Biden. Doesn't help Trump. The other, and I think maybe final piece of analysis here is that if you are a House member, or you are trying to become a House member, you are trying to keep your seat in the House, or you're trying to challenge a Democrat right now, you're going to be asked, do you support Donald Trump? When you're asked that question in New York State, you're asked that question in California, you're asked that question in some swing districts in cities in the South and Midwest right now, and you have to say, I support Donald Trump, immediately that hurts you with swing voters in those districts. I think it really impacts the election in the House of Representatives.
That's fascinating, and that's sort of the ripple effect that you talk about. I'm wondering now if I can pivot off of the Trump stuff and the election to, but pick up on what you've just said in regard to something else. There was news that was not completely unanticipated, but it's nonetheless noteworthy about Joe Manchin this week.
Tell me about.
He's declaring as an independent now.
Yeah, because there were two things he did. Did something with Mitt Romney, and he did something as well with his own declaration. Yeah, I think that muddies the Senate waters for sure. I think Joe Joe Manchin could run for anything and stand a good chance of winning in West Virginia. He's that popular. He's been a twice elected governor, a twice elected Senate. His national prominence and putting, look, West Virginia, going back to Robert Byrd, who was the minority leader in the Senate and majority leader in the Senate, he brought home pork for West Virginia. He gave a small state a great deal of significance politically. And Joe Manchin does the same thing. So the voters of West Virginia have an outsized voice in the Senate. And, if you look at the split in the Senate, Democrats always complain about what an annoyance Joe Manchin is, that he plays the middle, he leans to the right, but Republicans are going to be really annoyed if Joe Manchin is the reason that they're not able to pick up the Senate or it remains tied.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always talk about, and you and I have spoken of it, and I know you've emphasized it in other forums as well, the importance of the Manchin vote, the importance of the D in front of Manchin's name.
Yeah.
But now, as you suggest correctly, because he's such a big figure in West Virginia, his deadline to register to run for office in West Virginia is August 1st if he wants to run this year, but he'll register as an independent. So.
And registering as an independent leads you to think that there's something going on there, right? I mean that he wants to make sure that his power going away is a really scary thing to people who were otherwise powerful. So Joe Manchin leaving the Senate, Joe Manchin not leaving the State House in Charleston, West Virginia, he's and then not running for president. He's all of a sudden a less powerful man, and that's not something Joe Manchin wants to be. And so I think that there is something seductive about that Senate race to him, especially when you have Jim Justice and people that a Democrat can't win, but Jim Justice is a flawed candidate there. Manchin knows it and isn't crazy about Justice himself.
That's a great point about Justice. I'm thinking about Kristen.
Can I just add one other thing? Because the first thing when you brought up Joe Manchin, that he and Mitt Romney came together on something called the Back to Work Act, where you have the infrastructure of Washington D.C., downtown Washington D.C., really hurting right now. Small businesses, apartment rentals, all of that hurting because federal workers are not going back to the office or made to go back to the office. And Manchin and Romney got together, and again, this sort of points they're both looked at as somewhat independent now, even though Romney was the standard bearer for the GOP in 2012 as their nominee. They're looked at as kind of middle of the road, and they're coming together to try and get people to go back to work, to mandate it for federal business, for federal workers. Workers are, of course, aghast over this, but it is something that is going to matter because a lot of small businesses who would otherwise, in some cases, still be angry about what happened to them in the pandemic, are grateful that they're going to be forcing people back to work. It's both a political play that could hurt Donald Trump in certain ways, but also a showing of coming together as independents, which is an interesting place for them to be. So those two names together, think about them by August 1st.
This is asked, I think you can, Randy asks, if Manchin is that popular in West Virginia, why would he have to change political parties?
Well, because they've had their nominating conventions. I think it's probably, and it's a good question. I also, and I think I know the answer. I'm not going to say 100% that I know this answer, but my guess is that the Republicans have chosen their nominee or having their processes within their party, and so too the Democrats. Could he run as a Democrat? He could most likely get into a primary. Maybe that's not the route he wants to go for whatever reason. But by registering as an independent, he also is able, I think, to be, it's not a Democratic state, it's a Republican state. And his goal there would be to peel off Republican voters there, which it's much easier for an independent to do than some, a Republican who's voting for an independent doesn't feel like he's being unfaithful, right?
Right.
It's very difficult for a Republican to vote for a Democrat. So it could have things to do with the calendar. It could have to do with what I just said, but I don't know the answer to that.
The other Democrat who turned independent was Kristen Sinema, right? But she's not going to run.
She's not. No. That's a 2-person race right now. It seems that has to be yet to be determined too. But Carrie Lake and Representative Ruben Gallego from Arizona. Democrat.
So what are you hearing now as to what the Democrats are going to do for the top of ticket help that Biden might need? It's an odd thing. You always think of incumbency as a powerful position to be in.
Yeah.
But
it's been powerful in that it got him the nomination unchallenged, which is where its power is most, visibly wielded. In terms of what they're going to do to help the candidate, or is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm asking because I think he's wearing that incumbency as a burden now that he has the nomination. In other words, you have to own a lot of the challenges that America has right now.
You do. He has the convenience. Incumbent presidents, first-term presidents, always have that, right? That it's time to change horses. This person hasn't done what we want him to do. The economy is here. The war is there. Whatever it is. I'm not speaking specifically about 24, but the convenience for Biden here is that he's running against someone who is essentially an incumbent as well, right? I mean, Donald Trump was a one-term president himself. He has not faded into the background and then suddenly reappeared as a candidate. This is someone who really has never left the stage or the national dialogue. And because of that, I think that it takes a little bit of the burden of incumbency, as you put it, Mark, off of the shoulders of Biden. What his burden is the burden of being the incumbent Democrat and making sure that Democrats come out to vote for him. We've talked about it here before. I talk about it all the time. The biggest job he has is to get Democrats excited about his candidacy, and if not excited, to understand the importance, even with a lack of enthusiasm, the importance of coming out and supporting this ticket against Donald Trump, because that is, and that means getting union voters. That means getting black voters. That means getting as many young voters as they are able to mobilize. It means getting women, specifically suburban women, specifically women who left the Democratic Party, were independent, voted for Donald Trump in 2016, came back in 2020. He can't afford to lose too many of them. And that's why we talk about the silver lining of the Dobbs decision for Democrats, is that it got women motivated and understanding of what these court rulings are. I mean, of course, most Democrats don't want the Dobbs decision to have happened. But now that it's happened, it becomes a political ally.
The unions that used to fall into the camp of the Democrats, it's interesting to me. I saw it with the Staten Island guys, with the talk of the trial in and around Manhattan and Trump going out. You begin to see these New Yorkers and the working class Americans who are union people.
Right.
Biden has been such a strong union supporter. My God, he took to the picket lines in Detroit. I mean, during that entire auto workers thing. And Trump went to a fake a non-union place. It was a weird thing, and tried to rep it as a union thing. It was a classic sort of Hollywood moment where Trump just slapped together something that's completely a fraud, but championed it as he was the friend of the working man. But to my point, if you go to Staten Island, there's a lot of Trump, and those are union people who are doing well, and you'd think they'd be with Biden.
Well, you would if you assume that just because they're in a union, they're going to support the Democrat. I mean, that has faded a little bit. They're not as much of a monolith as they once were. But by the same token, taken en masse, I mean, if you go to Staten Island, that's going to be your Trump base of support, and it can be extrapolated across the country, right? I mean, that's where the only part of New York City that he won when he ran both times. It is, The other thing is that unions, the makeup and population of unions, that demographic has always been a pretty white demographic. It is a changing demographic now, but the old time union steel worker, auto worker type is one that would fall into the Democratic Party. However, they also fall into the haves versus have-nots, the bosses versus the workers. That's what unions started as, and that's what Donald Trump has been able to appeal to over the course of his 5 or 6 year political career, is that type of person. So it's a tricky place to hold on to unions for Joe Biden, even though he's got over 50 years of being supportive of them. But at the same time, they cut a figure that is sympathetic to what Trump's message was initially, at least the drain the swamp, the cut out the bosses. Of course, all disingenuous because he is the boss, right? And never before has anyone been more like the people that they've gone on strike against. But somehow he's been able to message to that type of voter.
I will get to maybe in our next conversation these rumors, these reports we're hearing that, Vicky and Sausalito notes it, and I've seen it also noted by others in the chat. MAGA's trying to stack the polling places with their people. They sort of now see the power of those positions associated with counting the vote, with processing the vote, as power positions that perhaps allow them to manipulate the vote. I would suggest, I'm sure they say to monitor the vote is probably what they would say, a different M word. But I believe manipulating the outcome has to be a big part of their future. But I'm going to put that to the side, and you may disagree with that. But I know our time is short with you, so I just want to thank you for, riding herd over some of this and the trial. And you must have, on some level, expected this outcome of the verdict?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by it. I mean, it seemed from what I didn't immerse myself in it because I didn't want to go down the path of watching coverage of it every night.
Well, you're busy with your Rangers.
Well, I'm busy with the Rangers too. The Rangers not, by the way, at the game last night, so I'm not a lucky charm. But the truth is that I just thought it was a cut and dried case, that there was no way. I don't know that I would have, if asked to bet on it, that I would have bet that it would have gone 34 for 34 guilty. But that really, puts the exclamation point on whatever kind of doubt you could throw on this. If he was convicted on 2 counts and acquitted on 32, then you'd say, oh, even the jury was divided and they didn't see this way. This is for the first time. This isn't political. Donald Trump can argue that it was politics that got him into the courtroom, but this is the first time when it isn't pundits on television or online. This is when it's not members of the Democratic House Judiciary Committee. These are 12 New Yorkers, and these 12 New Yorkers who had, were not elected by anybody or being paid to be on TV. They found him guilty on everything. So enough said, really.
Best of luck to your Rangers, Michael, says Luis. Please don't lose to Florida. Would you please generate more offense, Luis is saying.
If I could generate more offense, I would. They got to get Matt Rempe out of the lineup now, I think. I think Luis would agree that we need Blake Wheeler in there to help score goals. We can't afford to have a guy on the bench who plays 5 to 7 minutes, as exciting and cool as he may be, but he doesn't score goals. And anyone who has a better shot at doing that, Johnny Brodzinski, even Mark, come on, you want to add to it?
Kamish, do you want to add to Michael's take? Because I'll
be able to do that. Yeah,
I mean, the Rangers, they're probably better scoring on the penalty kill because they feel like that's the only time they can score.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's an embarrassing fact, Albert. But they also, I watched in person last night, and you see how quick those Florida shifts are. And there's a great player on all 4 lines. By the time the third period comes along, you understand the Rangers, who play so many of their better players for so much time, are exhausted, and Florida's fresh, and they've got good people on the lower lines, and so in the bottom.
Wow. So. Well, I will have to wrap this episode of things in sports that people are marginally interested in.
We could do another hour of hockey, Mark.
Oh my God!
Seriously, what the?
Right.
Mark, you have an appointment? All right, I'll take over from here.
He is so gracious, and he will join us for June Swoon on Monday at some point in the evening.
Yeah. I'll be there.
You can offline that with me and tell me when you'll join us. I know people are looking forward to visiting with you. The great Michael Shure, everybody. Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it, pal. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
My wife wants some vegetables for Cruda Day.
I was a basketball referee.
Feels great, baby.
Who's Mark Thompson? It's unbelievably offensive.
What he's got going here is a situation.
I was fortunate. Everyone I worked with made me better at my job.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Right on, everybody. Right on. It's our Friday show. If you've missed any of it, I might just counsel you to go back and watch David Katz, who gave us a post-mortem on the Trump trial and kind of handicapped what the future will be like. So I recommend that. We'll also drop that as a separate video as we do all the videos on the station and the channel. And that will be our plan for later today. That drops, I think, around 3 o'clock. So, Albert, I think I'm on time now, which is scary. Yeah, I know. It's not...
And this is their new hoax.
Yeah, I'm on time. So I have two options here, Albert. I can get to Kim's news promptly, which I like to do. I think she does a great job.
Kim, how are you?
Or I could kill some more time doing nothing, essentially reading comments, and before you know it, we're late again, and then completely bump Kim and create a sort of low voltage anger that she would carry with us, the resentment through the entire weekend.
Ooh, it's a wild idea, but it just might work.
You do you, my friend.
And that would motivate her, though, is the thinking, Albert, to even greater
Mark,
achievement.
I feel like you love the news a lot more than Kim. I think Kim's ready to toss her notes into the shredder and get ready for the weekend.
No.
That's a great take. I love the news more than Kim loves the news, yeah. Pamela Kirby, come on, Pamela Kirby. Big shout out.
Big shout out.
With a super sticker, super chat is what it is, actually. Sometimes I get my super sticker, super chats confused. Anyway, Pamela, $20 super chat. Late to the show today. Katz was great. Keep up the great work, Team Thompson. Thank you. I mean, really, thank you, Pamela. And thank you for noticing that, we scramble to try to get you some of the best takes on things. Kathleen Bryant with a 20. That's a super sticker.
Big shout out.
Come on, what a day. We are crowd-funded. Love the part of the crowd that funds. You guys, I appreciate everybody's support. But my normal tip, says West Theory, $5.34 plus some pennies for felonies. So it's normally $5 is what Wes normally and so beautifully contributes to the show. But today, it's $5.34 for each of the guilty counts. Very nice.
Big shout out.
Big shout out to Spencer Jaffe also for a couple bucks from shadow producer Calvin Wong, who says Hillary was right.
Big shout out.
Yeah, Hillary, you have to look at the Hillary situation in a different light. Doug Coke, $5 super sticker. Wow.
Big shout out.
Thank you, Doug. And Gordon Andrews, lock Trump up, says Gordon. Well, it's the $5
big shout out
super chat. Thank you. I don't think he'll be locked up for all the reasons that David Katz detailed and more, probably. Love you all. Thank you. And this is on Staten Island. Oh, please. Staten Island, as well as most cops and firefighters, are racist in the Suffolk County area. That's from Dancer. Yeah, honestly, underpinning a lot of that support in Staten Island is sadly, explicit or implied racism. So there is.
Oh, girl, baby girl. Don't even play.
It is true, baby girl. Kim's news and the culture blaster awaits us. Smash the like button, and we continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. President Biden says Donald Trump's guilty verdict reaffirms the American principle that no one is above the law. President Biden spoke today at the White House, saying the jury deliberated for 5 weeks and found Trump guilty, and now Trump has the right to appeal that decision, just like every other American. President Biden criticized Trump for calling the trial rigged, adding it is dangerous to attack our justice system. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's campaign, as you mentioned earlier, Mark, getting a little bit of a boost, a financial boost, as a result of his guilty verdict. Trump told reporters today his campaign has received about $39 million in small donor donations since he was convicted yesterday. Major Republican donors, meanwhile, are rallying behind the former president, pledging millions of dollars of support for Trump's bid to return to the White House.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Well, that's how it goes, Trump. That's how it goes.
But he does have the money flowing in, though. You're right, and the big money, too, at that.
West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin officially leaving the Democratic Party. Manchin announcing today he has registered as an independent with no party affiliation. He argued that national politics are broken and neither party is willing to compromise to find common ground. Back in November, Manchin announced he would not run for re-election this year after considering a potential presidential bid. French authorities say they foiled a plan to a planned attack targeting the Summer Olympics. Yeah, an 18-year-old arrested earlier this month suspected of planning to attack the soccer stadium during the games there. France's interior minister said the suspect was inspired by Islamist ideology. France is on its highest level of security alert ahead of the Olympics, which start on July 26th. Already, an attack foiled. Meta's election features are being banned in Spain due to some concerns about privacy. And Meta planned to collect voter data from Facebook and Instagram users during next month's European elections. Spanish regulators used emergency powers to stop the election data gathering campaign, again, because they were worried about privacy. And Bob Menendez is in the news again. Yeah. The lawyer for Mr. Menendez says the log of text messages being used in his bribery trial is full of mistakes. On the 10th day of the federal corruption trial in Manhattan, the New Jersey Democrats' lawyer said the prosecution is omitting important information that make the messages seem worse than they really are. Menendez and two businessmen are on trial for suspected bribery schemes where Menendez and his wife Nadine are accused of taking cash, gold bars, and even a Mercedes-Benz. 'Cause life is good. Lake Tahoe is at full capacity with a water level just shy of the maximum of 6,229 feet. And that marks the first time since 2019. Above average winters led to ample runoff and snowmelt replenishing the lake after it dropped below its natural rim level in 2022 due to drought. Other Northern California lakes like Shasta, Oroville, and Folsom also nearing capacity. Elon Musk has agreed to testify in an ongoing investigation about his purchase of Twitter. The SEC wants to know if Musk violated federal security laws when he acquired the social media platform in 2022. Musk says the SEC's request for testimony is unreasonable. And there are a number of bars in Washington, D.C. looking to turn former President Trump's conviction in his hush money trial into dollar bills, y'all. Several spots are offering big discounts while others are mixing up trial-themed drinks like the Convict Cosmo, the Locked Up Lemon Drop, the Felon Fizz.
Oh, my God. That's brilliant. That's right.
There's never been anything like this.
Yeah,
the Guilt
true.
Tea. Yeah. One beer garden will be pouring 34 ounces of justice all weekend, marking Trump's conviction on all 34 counts of falsifying business records with giant steins of select beers for $10.
Oh, that's brilliant.
There's a party going on. I don't know.
That's America. You can make money and package anything commercially.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
No verdict goes wasted in this country.
And the advertisements are pretty funny, too. Pretty good.
Yeah.
This report, speaking of booze, is sponsored by Tenuta Vineyards in Livermore. I'll celebrate with
sure they
my...
don't appreciate being called.
I'll celebrate with...
Sponsored by the Booze House at Tenuta Vineyard.
Well, they
you
have
want to get
beer,
schnockered.
They have wine. I'm not saying to get schnockered. I'm just saying I could see myself celebrating with... some why
magic
are you yelling,
juice.
Some why are you yelling red?
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
I'm yelling in celebration for 34 felony convictions, and I'm having a glass of wine.
You cannot say you love your country.
I'm just saying. It's a sad day.
No.
It's a sad day.
That was very inappropriate.
Exactly.
I stand by it. Smash it with your iron rod.
Smash it with your iron rod.
It's the phrase that gets you the exclusive 10% discount from the Mark Thompson Show. So how do you do it? Well, you can call or you can email Rich out at the winery. So This is Rich at 925-699-4576, or his email address is rich@tenudavineyard.com.
Wow.
So you email
he gives his
him.
email address out. I love that.
Oh, girl, baby, girl. Don't even play.
Don't even play, Rich, unless you're ready to get some good emails.
He is. He says, do it. Bring it on.
Bring it on.
Uh-huh.
What is it again? It's Rich at tenudavineyard.com. Tenuda is spelled with a T and another T. Michael Snyder.
Tenuta Vineyard. Mm-hmm.
There are two T's.
Interestingly, though, the website where you should probably peruse first to see what wines you're interested in ordering is tenudawinery.com.
No, my God, that's confusing.
I know. The
find
website
that
is
confusing.
Oh, girl, baby, girl. Don't even play.
You go check out the wines at tenudawinery.com, and then you email Rich at tenudavineyard.com.
I see. Well,
you say
they do this
smash
to me
it.
all the time. I don't know what the hell they do it
and
for.
they do. They make it confusing. And then you say smash it.
Smashed it with your iron rod.
Your big old iron rod, and you get your discount.
Thompson, party of four.
Yes, I'm sorry. My table's waiting. All right. Anyway, so Tenuda Vineyard, and you can make all kinds of arrangements there to buy terrific wine from the Livermore Valley.
Yeah.
Don't have to limit yourself to our Why Are You Yelling Red or the
But it's good.
Which one of you is Mark Thompson White. It's terrific. But they have how many different varietals? They have so
29,
many.
17 reds
29.
and 12 whites. I know.
Yeah.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Yeah.
You know, if you order a case, you get 20% off.
Oh, I love it.
I know.
There's nothing better, and Snyder, you'll agree with me, nothing better than discounted good wine. Am I right? Yeah. I mean,
I'm a beer drinker, buddy. I don't even want to go there.
Get out of here, then.
Mark, baby, Mark, don't even play, Mark.
Just agree with me, damn it.
Okay,
Why
fine.
can't I get, everybody's going to go, I'm sorry, Mark.
Let me say, no.
Oh, girl, baby, girl.
Yeah, don't even play, Mark. If I go to Tenuta Vineyards, I'm going to the drafts, the delicious beers.
They do have great beers. Yeah,
That's
do.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So we can bring Snyder with us. It's okay.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more fun to bring to see Snyder a little bit buzzed talking about his various loves of film, and then he starts talking about women that he wishes he was, in the turn Snyder down a bit. Snyder's a little bit hot. Oh, God.
I bet the more Snyder drinks, the more ding words come out.
Hey, are you calling me a dingbat? Come on now. I'm not that way.
Come on now.
Girl, baby, girl. Don't even do that.
Normally, Snyder is hot, Albert, but you're telling me he's normally he's not.
He's low. Yeah, no, he's super hot. It's almost distorted.
Okay, hang on a second, Snyder. God.
I'm going to wrap it up. I'm Kim McAllister. This is The Mark Thompson Show.
All right. You can wrap it up.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And the only way that we can do this is to do it with Michael actually speaking. And then, so pardon me for this is what we're up against.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do
it's
this
2 weeks
live.
running. Tasting.
You know, they do this to me all the time.
He
2
sounds
weeks
great.
running.
What? What is that, Albert? Please.
He sounds great now. Perfect.
Oh, he does. Sounds great.
I always sound great.
Now, you know what?
Just a little hot still. Just a tad down. But it's
hot.
not distorted. Not distorted, but a little hot still.
Let's try that. How about it now, Michael?
I feel perfectly A-okay. I feel temperate.
Okay. How's that,
Perfect.
Albert?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, my God, I'll tell you. It's all we can do.
Albert, thank you.
We do spend a lot of time on a lot of things that the audience will never realize we spend so much time on. But the thing that we love doing is being here in front of and with our community.
Do you know what we're here for?
Yeah. So without any further delay, although I do love delaying, I have to tell you it's one of my favorite things to do is to delay. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Have a little Coachella Valley coffee to do. Just do.
I hate to say this, but you are the classic Mark Thompson time waster.
God, this is so delicious. Sorry.
Look at this. Look at this man.
That's at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com if you want to get your own little taste of magic. Make sure you use Mark T at checkout. You'll get 10% off. Between Tenuta and Coachella Valley Coffee, you cover our the two sponsors that really help make this show gain some altitude. But what we really need is your support. So thank you, everybody who supports in the ways that we always talk about. Now, I'd like to move on, if I could, in the agenda. If anybody else has anything further to say before I move on, please say it now. Well, I see something already, Albert. Do you, a $3 super sticker from Cynthia. Cynthia Jeffrey, big shout out.
Big shout out.
I'd like to get an acknowledgement there. Can't really hear Mark well now, says Ren. Well, that could be a net benefit. Cynthia Jeffrey with another super sticker for $1.99.
Big shout out.
Come on. Cynthia Jeffrey for a $10. Who is
Big shout
Cynthia
out.
Jeffrey? She's my new favorite person. That's who she is. Thank you, Cynthia Jeffrey, for all the ways that you've just supported us. Bam, bam, bam. It was a triple bam. In wine there is wisdom, says Agolf. In beer there is freedom. In water there is bacteria. Ben Franklin is the quote. I feel like Ben Franklin didn't say that, but I still love the quote. I would love to waste a little more time. Albert, can you think of anything else we could talk about besides Michael Snyder's segment? $4.99 from Luis. I'm doing 34 shots of Don Julio this weekend to celebrate Don Marilardo's felonies. Very
shout
well.
out.
Big shout out. Luis is pretty cool.
And Cynthia donated again. I'm not sure which one this one was. We'll
Cynthia Jeffrey with a 20. Come on.
Big shout out.
You know what I'm considering doing, Michael Snyder? Is bumping you for Cynthia Jeffrey. She is my new best friend. And you are my old good friend. But it might be time to recast for somebody who supports my show even more fervently with that open pocketbook that Cynthia Jeffrey has. Big shout out, Cynthia.
Big shout out.
And thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now, if there are no further delays, I'd like to welcome this guy in. He is, when it comes to music, movies, streaming, television, art, photography, he is remarkable. He is, in my judgment, without peer. And his movie criticism and his evaluations of various things for your home and in theater entertainment, without comparison. He comes and goes on a rainbow. He's Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster.
I am here, my friends, and I will say that I am with peer, specifically Mike, Master Mark, of course, Kimmy, Mac, Al, the listener's pal, and he's not here, but the duck whisperer, Tony. We love them all. And the audience, you guys are absolutely the best. Thank you so much for tuning in and suffering through my segment. By the way, Mark, I heard you send up the bat signal for David Katz. How is it you don't send up the Katz signal, which would make so much more sense?
I should have set up the Katz signal.
Hey, I'm guilty of bringing that to your attention. And I'm also guilty of having a Mark Thompson speedball. My jokes earlier notwithstanding, Tenuta Vineyards wine and a cup of Coachella Valley coffee back, and it's so evenly balanced.
Yeah, that's what we serve here in studio is the Coachella Valley coffee.
Yeah,
it's a little early for the wine, although we do have it.
Yeah, I won't get near there, but I just thought, I'd reference the speedball idea, which is true. If you want to support the Mark Thompson Show, that's one way to do it, or just keep tuning in and smashing the like button. We're always happy to be here. We have movies to discuss.
Before you get to that, I just want to acknowledge the various super stickers that were sent by Cynthia Jeffrey. They added up to 34, which was the number of counts that the former president was found guilty on, and that was sort of the magic of all of those handful of super stickers that she sent along. So thank you.
I
Cynthia
appreciate that
Jeffrey.
lovely
Yeah.
distraction. Thank you so much. I'm like trying to focus on bringing the culture, the blast, the culture blast.
Yes.
Shall we get to it? What do you
Please.
say? All right. From Joachim Running, director of Disney's mediocre sequels Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, and Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, comes Young Woman and the Sea, which is an earnest Disney sports-oriented triumph over the odds docudrama or biopic with a female empowerment element that will make you shake your head over how backwards people were in the early 20th century. This is definitely a story worth telling. The struggle of New York tenement kid Gertrude Trudy Ederle, the sickly daughter of working-class German immigrant parents, who would, spoiler alert, become a world-class swimmer on the U.S. Olympic team and the first woman to swim the English Channel. You know, she's born in the early 1900s, right there, back then, and it's, you know, you get a lot of color from New York during that era, and then, you know, she and her sister decide they want to swim. The cast led by Daisy Ridley, a.k.a. Ray from Star Wars.
I didn't realize that the English Channel is close to New York. You're saying that's where they were.
No, not at all. How did you put that
I'm
together?
Sorry. Go ahead.
You have some geographical issues you have to work through, Mark. I know you've been over to the UK. You know the distance involved. Anyway,
but were they in New York or were they?
They were in New York. That doesn't mean she didn't want to swim the English Channel. That's a big deal, buddy.
I know. I get it, but she's got to get to England to do it.
Well, in order to do that, you do things like, you know, swim against the tide, if you will, and become a top-notch swimmer, get on the U.S. Olympic team, and be taken seriously. We'll get to that. Anyway,
she did all those things? Wow.
Daisy Ridley was Rey in Star Wars, and she plays Trudy. And this movie also features two of my favorite British actors, Stephen Graham, who was Al Capone in Boardwalk Empire, and stars in a very good foodie movie called Boiling Point, which I recommend people seek out. It's from a number of months ago. And Christopher Eccleston is in here as well. He was one of the first of the new Doctor Who's. He's really a terrific a British actor. And there are some lesser knowns, and everybody's very good. The cinematography and period art direction are high quality, especially the depiction of old New York and the pivotal Channel swim, which becomes the point of the entire film. But the script by Jeff Nathanson and Glenn Stout follows the standard plot structure for one of these movies in a very heavy-handed way, and the dialogue is pretty lumpy at times. It does seem laughable now that swimming was thought to be inappropriate for decent women back in those bad old days. I'm not joking. It was a big deal that any woman would want to swim. How dare you? How dare you swim?
Sure.
Simply ghastly, darling. Anyway, that made Trudy and her sister kind of rebels of a sort. And Trudy had some serious skills. Ridley is so appealing and quietly determined as Trudy that you do root for her. And Graham is a shamelessly free-spirited veteran distance swimmer in this thing. And Eccleston is terrific as a mean-spirited swimming coach. They're such accomplished actors that you might forgive the occasional clinker of a line they have to spout. Young Woman and the Sea is entertaining and has its moments, and it's going to play just fine on Disney Plus. For now, it's in theaters.
Oh, so he says miss it in the theater, catch it in
well, it's kind of lovely on the big screen, you know, that swimming and I mean...
No, I thought you kind of bailed on recommending it as an in-theater offering.
I'm just saying it's okay. It's just not great because it's so boilerplate in terms of these kind of biopics, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's get to something that I also had problems with, okay, and more problems, I think, on some level than I had with Young Woman in the Sea, but it all balances out. Ezra is a dramedy that has its own clumsiness issues on the scripting front, but it also has some serious star power. Not that it'll sweep away some basic baloney that is meant to pass for plot here. I looked at the cast, and I had my hopes up. It is such a treat to see the likes of Bobby Cannavale, Rose Byrne, Robert De Niro, Whoopi Goldberg, Rainn Wilson, and Vera Farmiga in almost anything, including this movie Ezra. And I would say there's something to be said for a movie that has its heart in the right place. But this look at psychologically damaged stand-up comic Max Bernal, played by Cannavale, who was trying to raise his autistic son Ezra, played by young William Fitzgerald, with his estranged, about-to-be ex-wife Jenna, played by Byrne, that started to get on my last nerve, you know? Maybe it was the legitimate outbursts of the kid, Ezra, whose tantrums are depicted in a fair way for someone suffering from that kind of degree of autism. More likely, though, it's the ridiculous plot contrivances that compel Max, who is living with his own father, played by De Niro, to essentially kidnap the boy, Ezra, and take him on a road trip from New York to a big break gig in Hollywood that was arranged by his manager, played by Goldberg, because Max thinks the kid might, you know, be his, I don't know, what would you call it, lucky charm. And that's despite the fact that the kid might start screaming and tell uncomfortable truths at any time, even while Max is performing. So you see the tension that's developing here, right? So it's kind of a relief when Wilson and Farmiga show up in small roles, when Goldberg does her wise whoopee thing, and when De Niro's, because you're getting a little break from Max's self-destructive, heedless behavior and Ezra's time bomb outbursts, because you know he's going to, it's a trigger thing, you know? I guess that's the point. And to be honest, this kid Fitzgerald is quite believable as Ezra. Tony Goldwyn, veteran actor and director, is not only in the movie as Jenna's new boyfriend, he also directed. I wanted to like Ezra more. It tries to take an unflinching look at the challenges and potentially debilitating aspects of raising a special needs child, but the contrivances got a little tough to accept, and it almost became as much of a trial as kidnapping your autistic son and going on a coast-to-coast jaunt with him. I can't imagine.
It feels a little Rain Man-ish for sure.
Yeah, for sure. There's a little of that here.
But, I mean, I don't know. Apparently, teacher Laurie, who's seldom wrong, says that the actor who played the autistic son is on the spectrum. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, he tapped into it and did a great job. And Tony Spiridakis is the screenwriter here. And there are moments that are lovely. And then there are others where I'm like, come on, dude. Could you be more corny? Anyway, let's move on to something I like much more.
Contrivance is a ding word among other
I want to
things.
let me move on to something that you will never watch, but I thought was very well done. It's time to break out the party hats, axes, and meat cleavers to celebrate, because it looks like we have a new horror movie franchise on our hands.
It has to be horror. What
and
is
in
it?
our nightmares. In a Violent Nature is a low-budget, often moody, yet cleverly executed slasher movie that brings a little fresh gore to the usual fun, with a masked killer who is compelled to dispatch unsuspecting and smug young people in the woods. You know,
if you're not watching and just listening, the poster for this film, In a Violent Nature, is this Grim Reaper-ish character in holding like a meat cleaver or something up there. I don't know what. Anyway, go ahead.
So our violent force of nature in the film is not particularly an enigma in A Violent Nature. As it plays out, there's a bit of the Friday the 13th killing machine Jason to this movie's Johnny. Disturbed by the removal of a locket from his gravesite near a ranger station and logging camp in the woods, Johnny's decades-old reanimated corpse relentlessly walks through the beautiful Ontario forest setting in search of his token, and the people, mostly teenagers on a weekend woodland getaway, who might have taken what's his. So, you know, Johnny has mommy issues, naturally, and wears a firefighter's mask most of the time.
And he's the reanimated character.
Yes, he has very creative ways to slaughter his targets, and a few of them are quite original. When the time comes, In a Violent Nature is violent, naturally. I mean, bloody kudos to screenwriter-director Chris Nash, who has not reinvented the wheel here, but has found a few wild and original ways to run over people with the wheel. Because, boy, some crazy stuff goes down here. The last 15 minutes are a bit odd, even if Nash still adheres to some of the conventions of the genre. Ultimately, he does a fine job of building tension and upping the creep factor throughout this effective, no frills but cool kills horror flick. In a Violent Nature is in select theaters.
Wow. You really like this in a Violent Nature, it's called. What else do you have?
Okay. Well, summer camp. Speaking of being in
Please
the
don't
woods.
tell me that's horror.
Well, it's a stultifyingly unfunny comedy.
Stultifying.
That is the latest Diane Keaton-fronted attempt to wring laughs out of a group of elder women grappling with growing old and fraying bonds of friendship while they try to rediscover their mojo. Kind of like the barely tolerable Book Club movie and its sequel that Keaton starred in. Keaton has roped Kathy Bates and Alfre Woodard into summer camp as her childhood pals getting together at a summer camp reunion after many years apart. As a bonus of sorts, we also get Beverly D'Angelo as a nemesis and Eugene Levy and Dennis Haysbert as potential romantic interests, all wasted.
Nemesis. Yeah.
Keaton's recent Freaky Friday knockoff, Mac and Rita, and the Lily Tomlin Jane Fonda vehicle, 80 for Brady, may have been in a similar bag and pretty awful to boot, but summer camp is somehow worse. And now how bad is it? It made 80 for Brady seem like on Golden Pond. I'm not joking.
Wow.
So the ladies of summer camp are a chilly workaholic, played by Keaton, a wealthy and smug self-help guru, played by Bates. I kept looking at her and seeing misery, if you know what I mean. And a registered nurse, a registered nurse played by Woodard, and she has a controlling husband. Bad slapstick, brutally flat jokes, and a tediously shrill tone are the camp rules here, made even more unpleasant by an intrusive, treacly score. I kept hoping that Johnny from In a Violent Nature would invade this camp and take out a bunch of the campers. And now that would have been that movie I would have been standing up and cheering for. Go get him! Go get him, Johnny!
I love that. Shrill is a ding word.
Anyway, supporting players include Josh Peck, who was apparently slumming. I think he was in Oppenheimer. Nicole Richie, say what? And Betsy Sodaro from the CBS sitcom Ghost. She plays one of the downstairs, like the basement ghosts who has like some horrible disease. She died of some plague. And she's given so much more to work with on Ghost than in this thing. Summer Camp was written and directed by Castile Landon. You know, it's always nice to see women continuing to take the filmmaking reins, but this one felt like a setback for the gals.
Wow.
It's in theaters.
Bummer.
I want to wrap up the movie section here with something that was so in my wheelhouse, I can't even tell you. It's called Robot Dreams, and Robot Dreams is an animated feature written and directed by Pablo Berger, a Spanish guy. This was Oscar nominated, and it is a whimsically and surprisingly moving feature from Spain, and it's set in 1980s New York City. And there is no dialogue, thus no subtitles, so that's cool. And the signage and products on display are all in English. And you'll be pleased to know, Mark, that a recurring musical number in the movie is Earth, Wind & Fire's September, co-written by your wonderful friend, the late Allie Willis.
Oh, that's really terrific.
So
I'll have to see it.
It's so sweet. So this is the basic nature of things. In this version of 1980s New York, everybody's an animal. And we focus on a dog named Dog who doesn't want to be alone. He's lonely. So he has the opportunity, even though this is the 1980s in New York, it's a fantasy version with animals instead of humans. And he mails away for a build-it-yourself robot to be his companion. And they totally hit it off. But something really, really unfortunate happens, and they are separated. And this movie is all about the struggle between the dog named Dog and his robot to kind of be reunited.
Michael, I cannot have my heart broken anymore.
It's so sweet. The question is, are they going to be able to reunite? And how it's approached is so clever. And I love the style of the artwork because it's uncommon. It doesn't look like your standard American animation, but by the same token, it's a very legitimate animated version of New York in the 80s, which I think is cool.
Oh, that's terrific. I really am going to see it. Where is Robot Dreams playing?
It is currently in theaters, but I'm assuming it'll be coming to VOD very, very soon.
Yeah.
I think so. And, I encourage you to check it out. I think you'll really, really enjoy it.
What do you have in the way of TV shows for us?
Well,
please,
I
sir?
wanted to briefly touch on a couple things that I totally got a kick out of. One of which is, I am a big fan of Doctor Who. I mentioned Christopher Eccleston earlier. He was the first of the new versions of the Doctor, a time-traveling, space-faring member of a lost race called the Time Lords, and they regenerate when they need to change actors. He's capable as an immortal of regenerating, so it was a clever way to get around anybody's contract issues or someone was burnt out on the role. In the I guess 2006, a guy named Russell Davies, who was a television producer in the UK, who grew up with Doctor Who and knew that it had been on hold for a number of years, albeit with a brief break by our friend Matthew Jacobs, who scripted a Doctor Who TV movie for Fox, but it didn't take off.
We had him here on this show.
Yeah. So Davies brought back the show, and over the course of its run since 2006, it became more and more popular. It introduced the wonderful David Tennant as the Doctor after Eccleston, the equally wonderful Matt Smith as the Doctor, Karen Gillan, who's become a star on her own since being on the show, Peter Capaldi and Jodie Whittaker, and they have a new Doctor. And Davies, after giving up the reins to the show to the likes of the great Stephen Moffat and Chris Chibnall, is back, and he has reinvigorated the show in a lot of ways, and he brought in, maybe in a youth movement, Nchuti Gatwa, who is a Scottish Rwandan actor who plays the lovable Eric on the Netflix show Sex Education. And he's actually a grown man, not a teenager anymore. And he is wonderful as the Doctor. He's very charismatic and energetic. He's the first black and out gay actor to play the Doctor. And his companion, Millie Gibson, a young blonde 20-year-old who was very popular on a famous British soap opera, is also equally wonderful. They've had about 4 episodes, one of which was written by Stephen Moffat and is already one of my favorites ever, where the Doctor inadvertently steps on a mine in a battleground and he can't get his foot off the mine or everything goes kablooey. Very tense, very exciting, very smart. And if you're a fan, it's now on Disney Plus. And Disney is investing a lot of money into it, so the special effects have never looked so good. And
you're a huge Doctor Who guy. I mean, I remember for years you've been a Doctor Who. And what is this? Is someone was saying Doctor Who? Oh, my first Doctor was Dr. Tom Baker.
Oh, Tom Baker, sure.
It's been downhill ever since, says John.
Really not so,
that's
John.
Not true, John. How dare you, John?
Tom Baker obviously is the gold standard of the first run of Doctors. That
so you agree with with John that much?
In that era. Yeah. But Matt Smith, David Tennant, Eccleston, Capaldi, and the jury's still out on Nchuti Gatwa, but he's also pretty damn charismatic.
Yes, John. Maybe it's you, John Slade, who needs to take another look at where you are on Doctor Who.
Okay.
Because there have been many a great Doctor Who since Tom Baker.
I would think so. So anyway, I really...
So the new incarnation of Doctor Who, it's on Disney Plus now.
Yes, as well as the BBC in the UK, but everywhere else worldwide, it's Disney money. It's the Mouse House.
So for our British viewers, it is available there.
On the BBC player and also on the British Broadcasting System's flagship channel.
Do you have anything more for us?
We have processes and protocols and standards.
I'm watching a show called Dark Matter, which is a wonderful sci-fi program starring Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly and Alice Braga.
What's that about?
It's about a scientist who gives it up to become a professor at a college because he would have been separated and lost in his work from his wife, and a doppelganger shows up, knocks him out, and thrusts him into an alternate universe where the doppelganger came from and tries to take over his life in our world. And that's the beginning of it, and it turns out that...
The science is ridiculous.
There is super science involved, and I can only tell you that the mysteries unravel, and...
it's Dark Matter, it's called.
Yeah, and the whole multiverse idea is kind of exciting about this, and I would suggest that, fans of sci-fi might be on board and probably should be.
Jennifer Connelly and Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly. It's on Apple TV.
Yes, sir.
And it's continuing Apple's run of terrific limited series. So I recommend Dark Matter. Have a little patience. It draws you in.
I see. Great. Well, good. That's Dark Matter. It's available on Apple TV. Doctor Who, the latest incarnation, Michael likes. You can find it on Disney Plus. The various changes in Doctor Who through the years have yielded some real benefits, Michael says, in terms of production and special effects.
It's been a launching pad for a lot of really talented people. And Millie Gibson, who plays the mysterious Ruby Sunday, the new female companion, she might be next. We already have, and Ncuti got
next big star to break out of Doctor Who.
She's very good in the current run, and I believe she's in a modernization of the Forsyte saga coming up.
Oh, my parents used to watch the Forsyte saga. They love the Forsyte saga, my mom and dad.
This is not your parents' Forsyte saga.
Okay, the Robot Dreams film is the animated feature, Oscar nominated. Michael really likes Robot Dreams. He says it will. I'll mention Robot Dreams again, hoping that you change the graphic to Robot Dreams. Thank you. Robot Dreams takes place in 1980s New York, and a dog and a robot are friends separated, and apparently the attempt to reunite is it works really well. The entire film, well, it's an Oscar-nominated film, so you'd figure it hangs together nicely, and it's even emotional.
Right. Well, 1.5 tears on the Snyder cryometer.
Wow, and I'm worried, but I'm compelled to see it because I'm very soft touch emotionally. Robot Dreams is what it's called. It's in theaters. Summer Camp. Summer Camp is so bad, says Michael Snyder, quoting him, it makes 80 for Brady look like on Golden Pond, which is one of the, I think that's a...
Yikes.
Really one to miss, despite the fact that it has Alfred Woodard, Kathy Bates, Diane Keaton,
Eugene Levy. Oh, my God. Eugene.
Sometimes stars take a project for the money, or we're not aware of, what it was going to turn out to be. Hey, meantime, on the other side of Cinema Land, there's a horror film that Michael Snyder, the Culture Blaster, loves. It's called In a Violent Nature. It's a low-budget, cleverly executed film, and Michael really is into it.
Yeah, but it's not for everybody. It's a horror movie, and I think Loves is a little extreme.
Okay,
I thought it was very well done, of kind.
Okay.
Thank you.
I of course can't go near it. That stuff freaks me out. But you guys might like it anyway. It is in theaters, and it's well, you heard Michael on
It'll
that.
eventually end up on Shudder, the horror streaming service.
Ezra is the film about a couple that is divorced, raising their autistic son, Bobby Cannavale, Rose Byrne, Vera Farmiga, Whoopi Goldberg, Rainn Wilson. I mean, it reads like some kind of red carpet.
Wait,
Tony Goldwyn,
you're burying,
William Fitzgerald.
You're
Robert
burying
De
the
Niro.
lead. You're burying the lead. De Niro.
I was getting to Robert De Niro.
Okay.
I was finishing with a crescendo. How dare you
I'm
interrupt
sorry.
me?
Sorry, dude.
Anyway, the reality is that Michael really liked this. Ezra. He felt the performances were believable. The child is on the spectrum, is apparently quite good. And do you have something else to say?
I can't believe, your brain filter is such. I thought it had problems with the script. I just thought the performances were really lovely.
You're right. I actually forgot completely. It seemed to me that you liked it, but you're saying...
No, I mean, this cross-country trip. Let me kidnap my son and go on a cross-country trip to do some show because he's my lucky charm, even though he's autistic.
Maybe it was me who liked it. I liked your review.
Oh, I try to do my best.
Yeah. But you're saying, in truth, it has issues.
It has issues. It's not terrible. The performances make it worthwhile.
See, I like that basic premise that you're kidnapping your autistic son to go cross country to be on some show. To me, that speaks to me. Like the lust for, the spotlight. It's very Rain Man, too. And then this kid,
You don't want to take this kid to Vegas, though. I'm telling you right now.
All right. And finally, the first film that Michael reviewed was Young Woman and the Sea. It is on Disney, and it's a docudrama about this tenement kid and the desire, tenement kid in New York, desire to swim the English Channel. But remember, this takes place, I think, was it around...
the early 1900s, about 1915, 1916,
and this is a
1920.
woman.
Yeah.
And because of young woman and the sea, one might be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
But women then, facing any number of things that were making it difficult to achieve anything along these lines. They weren't viewed as viable sports, athletes, and they were thought of in just sit in the kitchen and...
Right. There's a scene in here where our heroine and her sister want to jump into the pool, and the men are in the pool, but since there are men in the pool, no women allowed.
That's crazy, isn't it? We really... what's our problem as a species, Michael Snyder?
I don't know. And then you give, I assume, a talented woman enough money to make summer camp, and she screws all of her sisters by doing a crappy job. I'm just kidding. Good luck to you on your next film.
Okay. Michael, tell me about, thank you for these reviews.
Sure.
Tell me quickly about where we can find you.
Well, you can check me out at thevoicesf.org, where I do a weekly column. This week's column is about Music City, San Francisco, the wonderful entertainment complex developed by a singer and entrepreneur Rudy Colombini on Bush in San Francisco. And it's Rudy's attempt, and things are going pretty well, to kind of bring San Francisco back to the forefront of the music scene on a global level. And you can find out more about it by reading the article. And I'm also here on the Mark Thompson Show every Friday, buddy.
Well, we look forward to your visits. We really do. And you can find the Culture Blaster across social media at Culture Blaster.
And on Threads at Mike the Knife 123. Go Giants! You're facing the Bronx Bombers tonight. The Yankees are in town at Oracle Park. I know where I'm going to be brain-wise at 7 p.m. tonight.
Judy says, thank you, Michael Snyder. She gives you the signature rainbows. He does come and go on a rainbow. Bye-bye, Michael Snyder.
So long, everybody.
Culture Blaster. Loving you, buddy. Loving you. Loving you.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Do you know what we're here for?
Yeah. I'm excited about the weekend.
Gonna be good. I have some
and
news.
I'd like to enter the weekend with a good feeling about our community on this show. Those who've helped. I think we have a new kind of trollish person in. I'm loving it. I love a little mixing it up in the...
How did I miss a troll?
In the conversation. But I'm maybe not full troll, but feels like could evolve into trollness. So
Okay.
I welcome all to this show. It's possible as we start to stream this show on other platforms that we could get some of that a little bit more in the chat, but we will see.
I have a touch of news.
Oh, you do?
A very
Please, go
quick
ahead.
touch
Sorry.
of news.
Yeah.
You know how there was trouble with Anchor Steam? It's going to close down.
Oh,
Some
right.
employees
So
tried to
somebody
buy
bought
it.
them, right?
Well, yeah. Today, we know Anchor Steam, Anchor Brewing has found a buyer, and it is a yogurt billionaire, the guy who owns Chobani. His name is Hamidi Ulukaya. He's the founder and CEO of yogurt maker Chobani.
Wow. Saudi Arabia pays cash.
No, it's
will
not
be
Saudi
reviving the San Francisco beer brand. Yeah.
Wow.
So he bought it for an undisclosed amount. It includes all of the assets of Anchor, including the factory up in Potrero Hill, the brewing equipment, all the intellectual property. So it looks like Anchor Steam lives another day. There you go.
Wow, that's terrific.
We're in better shape, but I don't think we're in wildly better shape.
Well, you're alive, which is better than you were. Wow, Michael, that's pretty good for you too.
I'm thrilled to be able to say proudly that San Francisco's Anchor Brewing persists.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you have it with yogurt stirred in, it's a special treat,
Yes,
unlike any
really
you've ever had
no,
before.
There's never been anything like this.
Yogurt infused ale, delicious.
Wow. I'm so excited. Oh wait, I'm sorry. You had more?
I'm excited. No, for the Zoom meeting on.
That's June Swoon.
June Swoon
see
on
you
Monday.
On that
I'm
Monday
thrilled
evening.
about that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, Michael will be at June Swoon.
Early.
Yeah, early on. Early in the entire offering. All right, without any further delay, that is big breaking news. Anchor Steam lives to see another day. So.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Well, I don't want to leave. It's my least favorite thing is leaving. My most favorite thing is killing time with, comments and stuff on the show. Albert, do you have anything? Any last words?
Albert, thank you.
Do we have to recognize anybody?
No, we
Have I been? We're up to speed. Good. Kim, I think you've been terrific today. I know it's Friday's a strategic placement of news and breaking events. So,
Kim, how are you?
I'm looking forward to continuing drinking in the magic that is Kim over on the After Party Live channel.
We'll do it live.
So
I
that
can
is going
write it
on
and we'll do it live.
now. Thank you, everybody who has ridden to our support in the community that is part of our audience. Thank you.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Everybody have a good weekend. Back here on Monday.
Bye-bye.
And June Swoon Monday night. Until Monday.